Well,
on the other
exactly. And there's a phrase, I think it goes something like high tech, high touch, meaning the more technology we have, the more our need for touch is brought
That's exactly
forward.
what I was going to say.
Yeah. And you know, I remember back in my formative era, you know, back in the late 60s and 70s, they introduced encounter groups.
Right.
There was a kind of a fad and a trend to break the ice, get to know each other, and this was before the advent of the personal computer.
Well, you know, as I'm listening,
and then it all faded away.
Well, it did fade away, and as I'm listening to both of you, I have to share what's coming to my mind is it's a movie that came out a few years ago that I still to this day wish everyone would watch called The Last Mimsy. Have you seen that movie, Meg?
I love that movie with all my heart.
too.
I've watched it about 12 times.
And guys, if you have not seen The Last Mimsy, go see it, because what I love is that it actually shows kind of this, you know, this is what happens if we don't. You know, it's our future coming back to us saying, don't forget that it's about touch, that it's about a heart, that it's about each other, that it's about this gift of one to one. And essentially, where humans look like bugs until at the very end, they literally unzip the suit and look at each other again without looking through the eyes of, you know, artificial technology. So it's really a very powerful time because we're at the moment. You know, the moment is here. This is not coming. It's right now. And this is why I'm so passionate about the generations, because we have, you know, I was giggling with Shri a little earlier about how, you know, in the 60s, it was about free your mind, free your soul, be available, you know, look at each other. And now as that generation kind of enters into the wisdom keeper role, more than ever, that message needs to be delivered and received. So it's really beautiful. And at the same time, a fascinating challenge that's being dropped on all of humanity.
Yeah. And, you know, as human beings, we tend to create things outside of ourselves that reflect what's going on inside. And what we're witnessing is humanity is almost there. We have got the internet, we've got all this technology, and all that's doing is what we're completely capable of doing with our own consciousness. But we need to see it and touch it and feel it and smell it so far. But we're coming to a point where that's leaving a lot of emptiness in people. So people are really looking for what's missing here.
Yeah.
And it's everything we're talking about. So, you know, it's particularly, I'm advocating for the school systems to change how they're running their classes. And, you know, you said something a few minutes ago that's one of my passionate things, and that's that we're running the world on paradigms that are over 100 years old.
Exactly.
And particularly the school system, literally, the curriculum was devised around 1900, and that's still being followed. And you've got kids, and even some of the adults, but they're being made to sit in a classroom and learn in linear fashion, you know, in uncomfortable environments that are overloaded visually and orally and institutionally, and they don't think the way we did. They've learned because of the leaps in our technology, and anytime there's a leap in consciousness, there's a leap in intelligence. So these kids are naturally able to compartmentalize information in fragments until they get the whole piece. And they're so uncomfortable in these environments, they move around a lot to shake off the excess energy. And when they do, then they're labeled ADD, ADHD, you know.
And then they're drugged.
Sorry?
And then they're drugged.
And that's it. And then they're being drugged. And I don't know if it's still going on, but when I put the first book out and I spoke in certain areas of the country where there's a lot of pharmaceutical corporation activity, I'll just put it that way. How was that for tactfulness? I was literally told by people that worked in those places and in doctors' offices and schools that the schools and the doctors' offices were being rewarded by the pharmaceutical companies. The more drugs that were prescribed, the more money they got, or perks or whatever. That's supposed to be illegal. But they were finding ways to make it work, not so directly, you know, and that just terrified me because I had parents contacting me and saying that social services had showed up at their door and said, if you don't drug your kid, we're taking him away from you.
Yeah.
Now that's extreme, but that had actually happened. And
that's happened in more than one way. Certainly through these children that are not conforming to the government's idea of a norm, and then we have the whole issue about privacy and vaccinations and other choices that are being legislated. We have some callers standing by, and before we move into commercial break, why don't we have a first-time caller on line 5. Let's say hi to Mubin from Canada.
Namaste.
Hola.
Namaste. Greetings, Sri and Kira. Very happy Diwali to all at Tosa.
Oh, muchísimas gracias. Sí, and to you.
Thank you. Your previous installments have greatly helped me stay centered during the last 2 turbulent months of September and October, and I thank you for that. I had my birthday on October 23rd and emailed Briella requesting for a mini reading, and she said she would make sure that Sri and Kira mentioned my name online.
Absolutely.
And here you are.
And that's why you're our first caller today, my love. We skipped ahead in the calls and said, there he is. And I want you to just take a breath and feel our love around you, Angel. And when Briella handed me your email, my heart just soared because you're at such a magnificent year for you. One of the things that happened for you, and of course, no coincidence that your birthday coincided with that beautiful eclipse, is that you're at, and forgive me for using the word, you're at an eclipse of your life, meaning that there is the words they're giving me is a monumental choice of great momentum, and that as this choice comes forward for you, this year will unfold. And it's funny, they keep using all these M words: magic, majesty, momentum, and more. And so those are your 4 M words for the year. And I want you to feel your heart right now, because you have an incredible heart. And your heart is like lined in gold. And they keep telling me that the gold that is inside your heart is now ready to be felt outside as well. And that gold energy will propel you, prepare you, and push you. And I'm sorry they keep giving me these words with these letters, but you have these beautiful, they like dance around you, my love. All the energies around you dance, and they dance. They look like with beautiful mudras and movements. And they're saying, allow your flow to be golden, allow your heart to receive, allow your life to move forward, and may this year prove all that you have ever asked. And so it is.
May I add one thing?
Sure.
Sure.
Hey, sweetie, you've got to believe in you. Everything she said is true. But I'm sensing a hesitation, and I'm not sure what that's about. But go for it. Whatever it is, you can do anything. So all of that is true, and your system has released a lot of that old stuff in the last couple of months, and you're really ready to rock. So, put your head up and put your feet in front of each other, because you can do it.
I am in awe, because I feel really lighter and actually relieved.
Excellent.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Keep one foot in front of the other and smile at everything.
And feel how much we love you and honor you. And thank you for the joy of connecting with you in person today, my love. Namaste, beloved angel.
Love you guys too. Namaste.
Namaste.
Well, it's always a delight to connect in person. And we have a couple other callers standing by. Just keep breathing, keep standing by.
Whew, what a big show.
Break, and then we'll be back with our special guest, Dr. Meg Blackburn Losey. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're delighted to be with you now.
Ooh, we are. Shree's giving me the eyes, guy. He's so cute.
Well,
and
now is where it's at. And in the words of Archangel Zadkiel, remember, there is only now and the soon to be now.
I love that quote. That's one of my favorite quotes. And, speaking of the now, I hope you've been with us for the whole show. But if you're just joining us, we are in the midst of an extraordinary conversation with an extraordinary guest, Dr. Meg Blackburn Losey. And we're really diving into the weaving of the generations and what's happening with our kids and how we can come together and this is really a powerful now, Sri.
Well, and as just to bring us back to that topic,
please.
I was practicing as a family counselor, psychotherapist in the 1990s. And
just yesterday.
That's when it seemed like ADD, ADHD was starting to rear its head.
Right.
And the one thing is, as some parents brought children into the office, what I realized intuitively at that time is these kids needed to get their hands in the dirt. They needed to finger paint. They needed to get out of the institutional environment and let the left and right hemispheres of their brain have a conversation. And yet, it was about, at the same time, there was the rise in the technology, the Nintendos and the video games. And as you pointed out earlier, Meg, these children are being taught, even though they don't realize they're being taught, they're being conditioned by these games to give credence or to believe in an artificial reality.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it's even carrying over into adults. That's why we're seeing so many police shootings. These young cops have played these games for years, and then they want to be, law enforcement, and they have that same mentality from the artificial intelligence, so to speak, and it's scary. But the good news is, the really good news is, the kids that are coming in, since the late 90s, are really going to change our world, and we're here to help them.
Exactly.
And, we've got the crystalline kids who are completely about the heart. If you ask them why they're here, they'll tell you that they're here to remind us how to love each other and ourselves, because so many people have forgotten how, or if they even needed to. And they're natural healers. They're all about social change. And when they hit about 10 or 11 years old, they start acting. And they're very noticeable. We've seen a lot of them in the news inventing things, changing the way things happen in their school, their village, whatever. And then we've got the star kids who are all about the earth and all about inventing things and technologies and how to make the earth more whole and well, because they can feel it and they know that things need to happen. So as these kids start getting older, some of them, are now 15, 16 years old. It's not going to be very long before we start seeing a lot of them out in the public working together as a whole. It's kind of like both halves of the nut came in one generation, the total yin and yang as far as us and our planet. And they're going to be coming together and doing some pretty darned amazing things. And they're going to find ways to bring that spiritual nature back to us as human beings, back to our world, and away from all of that stuff we've been talking about earlier that's old paradigm. They're not going to tolerate it. They're very powerful. Yeah.
You're right. And so it brings me to this question then, which is also about the weaving we've been talking about of all the generations.
Exactly.
Everything you're saying is 100% correct, which then puts the onus on the other generations. And I keep wanting to go back to the baby boomers and the Gen X's and the millennials, because we are the ones that are responsible for weaving the world that they will create within.
Exactly.
And that we seem to be at this tipping point moment of what are we leaving for them and how can we really assist them, because their message is so clear and their energy is so strong that it's time for the rest of us to remember ourselves as well, so that we can pave a way for them versus make it hard. Right now they're really having to swim upstream, and it feels like there's things we could all be doing to collaborate versus separate.
What you said something a minute ago is one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is, what are we leaving? You know, as I have taken people to one sacred site after the other, I noticed that as they approach the site, they'd get into what I call their holy place. And they would be very reverent in the space, and they would have this wonderful energy exchange. And one day it occurred to me to say, don't think about what this site just gave to you. What have you left for those who come after us? What was your intention? What was the energy that you left with those rocks or that place? And what are you going to leave in the world? Everything you do, every moment, every energy that we express communicates to creation and says, this is the reality we want. Right. So it comes then to live intentionally And with the knowing that everything we express, whether it's a thought, a word, a breath, a motion, anything, an act, any of that tells creation, I want more of the same. So if we can be aware of that and realize that we don't have to carry everybody else's stuff, we're responsible for us, and how are we expressing me in the world every day, that's how we change the world. We live by being true in ourselves and an example that shines a totally different light. And that's what we can do.
I'm smiling because I said I love what you're saying, and it's bringing a smile to my face. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it's actually from Mother Teresa. And it's a beautiful quote where she says, "Do not wait for leaders. Do it alone, one person at a time." And it's absolutely the truth. And that one person at a time, leads me to another one of my favorite quotes from Gandhi, which is, essentially, we cannot change the world until we change ourselves. And so as we are each remembering ourselves, because that's really what we're in the process of doing. And of course, one of the greater gifts of the chaos of the polarity is that opportunity to remember ourselves. And then, of course, cosmically in October, we were really supported on a global scale to remember ourselves. But
in a
as we remember, yeah. So as we come together, remembering ourselves, it would seem to me, and I want to go back to something we were talking about before the commercial break, that part of how we can remember ourselves is how do we start removing the pharmaceutical stranglehold that's on so many of our school systems and our children?
Well, they only survive when we participate.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
And I think that their commercials should be outlawed, just like smoking commercials were.
Yes.
And alcohol commercials were. What the pharmaceutical company is doing every day, every 5 minutes on every channel is basically undermining the mentality of people to convince them they are sick and they need something. And I am a strong advocate that should be illegal and that this needs to stop, because what they're doing is they're doing, they're basically in control of their own studies at this point. And so they're putting drugs out way too fast before they're really, truly proven to be safe. And then a year later, you get the legal notices. If you took this medicine, we've got to stop participating. We've got to stop believing them. We need to take very good care of ourselves. I'm not saying that. And there are times where prescription medications are necessary. I'm not against it. What I'm against is what they're doing to the psychology of people, particularly in the U.S.